Hey guys, welcome to the Field of 68 YouTube channel. If you like what you see here, hit that subscribe button and you'll get more college basketball content just like this. Talk about the coaching carousel. It kicked off on today, February 14th. Chris Holtmann was fired at Ohio State. It is the second, I'm doing air quotes here, high major job that is open because DePaul is also currently open. And I don't know if that necessarily counts as a high major job. And I believe technically West Virginia is as well, although Josh Eiler is the interim there. So I don't know if we want to call that open or not. Either way, Holtmann fired today. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty about whether or not this was necessarily the right decision as much as I do want to talk about what you do from here if you're Ohio State. And RC, I'll start with you on this one. It feels like part of the reason they made this decision when they made the decision was to be able to kind of get stuff ready for transfer portal season, which is coming up in about 4 weeks, to try to generate a little bit of money coming into their NIL collective, which is something that I'm told has not been that great for Ohio State basketball. It's been really good for the football team. They just spent like what, 13 million on the football team to be able to rebuild that roster. It feels like they're trying to get some new blood in there, some new excitement in there, so they can find a way to be able to get a little bit of that money coming in on the basketball side as well. What do you make of this job? What do you make of this opening? What do you make of the potential hires? Let's start with this. RC, you've been in the coaching business. What do you make of the Ohio State job overall?
I think it's a hell of a job. I mean, like you just said, I think the best thing is just questioning. We know they have resources and NIL money. The question is, does it come into basketball? And that's one of those
Mhm.
things that a lot of schools have gone in. So much goes to football. It's a football school. And you got to, as much as we're going to throw around names, as a coach, that's going to matter to you. Because, when you're talking about the next coach, is it going to be a guy that was already a high major coach before and now has an appreciation at a mid-major school or somewhere else? And does he want to go and deal with that? So I think that's the biggest question you're going to ask, from that. It's a top 15 job, I believe. Resources available to you, but how much of that comes to basketball, I think, is the biggest question.
Sweeney?
Look, I think the thing that I look at is think about all of these SEC jobs and how they've exploded here in the last couple of years, right? What Oates is doing in Alabama, what Bruce Pearl's doing at Auburn, right? You take a place that cares about athletics, that is invested financially, and you just bring in the right coach to bring some excitement, and it goes nuclear, right? Recruiting goes crazy, the fan base blows up, right? Like, I think Ohio State can be that too, right? Like, I think Ohio State people will care about basketball if they're provided a winner and a guy who can really generate buzz. I think Chris Holtmann tried to do that. They just never quite got over the hump. And I think there will be a lot of interest from someone who thinks, okay, I can walk in here, have all the resources, right? Have an NBA style arena, have NIL money, have the success of football, right? Like the stuff you're going to be able to do in recruiting, being able to bring kids to football games and show off the whole package of being an Ohio State student athlete, I think is awesome. So I think it'll be a sought after job. I think there will be, as RC said, several sitting high major coaches who are interested, both guys who've been at a super high level and also maybe guys just looking for a fresh start or a place with more NIL resources. Like I think this is going to be a more active carousel than we've seen in the past in terms of high major to high major movement because guys sit there, they realize they're not going to have the resources to get players, and they want to go somewhere they're going to have it. And I think Ohio State, you're going to have that.
Yeah, I mean,
Are we sure?
that's the
Are we
big
sure
conversation.
they're going to have it though? I think is the
Yeah,
question that I have. Are we sure? That's the question because there's a lot
Right.
of high major jobs now where we're making the assumption that they're well resourced and they put a lot of money in NIL. We know they put money in NIL for football. The question becomes how much money are they putting into a basketball? Because if you're going after another high major coach or another coach that has a really good job, he may look like, nah, you know what? If they got options, because they're not just going to, I don't think they're going to give this to an assistant. They're going to go after somebody, I think, that's proven,
Mhm.
either that's been a high major coach, that's at a mid major, or someone that's really, just at another high major job. So, but the resources, the
Well,
committed
RC, look
resources.
at the names that are being linked, man. Look at the names that are being linked. You got Sean Miller, you have Greg McDermott, you have Nate Oates, you have TJ Otzelberger, you have Lamont Paris, you have Nick Cronin, you have Dusty May. You have a bunch of guys that have done it at a high level at what people would consider really good jobs, or the absolute best when it comes to the guys that have not quite gotten to those what we would consider top 25-ish kind of programs, right? Like we're talking about Mick Cronin leaving a blue blood in UCLA to go to Ohio State. No, I don't think it's going to happen. That buyout is, it might as well be $10 billion at this point. But that's where we're at with this opportunity. And here's my question to you. I would bet, especially with McDermott at Creighton, the NIL is rolling better at Creighton right now than it is at Ohio State. I think that there is a good chance that it's rolling better at Xavier right now than it is at Ohio State. Generally speaking, if this was 3 years ago and you were at Xavier or you were at Creighton, you probably would try to go get that Ohio State job. And we saw that in 2017. You remember when Chris Holtmann got the job? Who else was in the mix? It was him and McDermott. It basically came down to those two, right? And McDermott did the old I'm pulling my name out of the Ohio State job picture when he found out he wasn't going to get it, right? Which is a tried and true method of college basketball search season. But that's my big question to you is like, would you take this job if you're not going to have the same amount of NIL money that you would get at what would typically be considered a, air quotes here, lesser job, Randolph?
No. And I think that's the question. We can go down that list of names of everybody you just named, and how many of them are going to get extensions, and they're going to use the leverage of this to say, hey, let me go get extension. We see it every year. So if they're not going to commit NIL resources to you that you need, then for the coaches that you just named, they're going to either the ones, even Dusty May, he's going to have options. Get in line for that. He's going to have plenty of options to go from. So it's going to be, they're going to have to show that they're committed to that from an NIL perspective, and not having just. And then the other thing is, as a coach, how many coaches want to go? You talk about a job like Xavier where you're the big domino. There's no football there, so it's just about basketball. So you don't have to deal with that. Does a coach want to? No one to go to Ohio State, you're second fiddle. You got to deal with that.
Thank you for watching the Field of 68. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here, hit that like button, share this link with your friends, or check out the description for some other places that you can consume Field of 68 content.